as a rule, I consider myself to be a relatively private person, despite the fact that I had a job for 24 years that was less than private. It was very much in the public, and a lot of people said that I bared my soul on a regular basis. Not true. I probably revealed what I was comfortable revealing on the 24 years I was in radio. Just like I am comfortable revealing what I like to reveal when I do stand-up comedy. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, yeah, I think I'm a private person. I think we're all private people. I think we all have things that we don't really want to share or discuss that we keep within ourselves until the right moment manifests itself and you actually feel comfortable. On this podcast, I've been told over the multiple episodes that we've had that I have gotten people to talk about things that surprisingly they didn't think they would ever talk about. Chalk that up to whatever you want. Being comfortable here, the booze, whatever the case might be, I don't know. But tonight we continue what started off as a very intimate conversation and did not finish. For those of you who listen to Whiskey Business, hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, your host for Whiskey Business. The podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. And tonight's podcast is the Whiskey Deposition Part 2. If you haven't listened to Part 1, I strongly suggest you go on back because that is where our guest, interviewer, once again tonight, Bill Mattis, attorney for, I forget,
Dinsmore and Scholl.
Dinsmore and Scholl, a partner at Dinsmore and Scholl. I thought that when he sat down to do Whiskey Deposition, that we would wrap it up in one fell swoop. But no, we only got into one part, and apparently the counselor has divided this into 3 parts this evening. So tonight's second part will be shared with our guest bottle, Basil Hayden's Dark Rye, which I'm very excited about. This is a combination of Kentucky rye whiskey, Canadian rye whiskey, and port. What? Yeah, 80 proof, and as you can see, we've already sampled a little bit. Kind of tasty, kind of sweet, and I can see where a bottle of that can go down real smooth and fast. We'll get into more about the whiskey a little bit later. But welcome to Whiskey Deposition Part 2. Counselor, once again, I swear to tell the whole proof and nothing but the proof, so help me God. Where'd we leave off?
We left off, you were working in a steel mill. Town known as Steubenville, Ohio.
Yep.
You'd gone through a couple of raises. You were making good change. And something happened to make you decide to leave the glorious steel mill life.
That would be the blast furnace. I remember, yes. The blast furnace was like, okay, this is not the way I want to get up and live my day. And which way to Columbus, Ohio? Because I'm going to college.
Now let's talk about college. When did you start college?
September of 1977. Fuck, I'm old.
Was that directly out of high school?
And that was directly out of high school. There was no gap year. We didn't have gap years back in the 70s where the kids, you know, if you took a year off, it's because you were either lazy or stupid
or you got a wedding in a union coat.
Oh, yeah, well, something like that. Yeah, there was no gap year. No, I went 77. This is back when Ohio State, which is a very difficult place to get into now.
Yes, it is.
The state had to take you back then.
If you graduated from high school?
If you graduated from high school, they had to at least take. They didn't have to keep you, but they had to take you as a state university.
So how were the academics back in 1977?
For me personally, I was not a good student. Okay. I was not a good student.
Now, you came from a small high school?
Steubenville Big Red.
Okay. And what were your impressions coming to Columbus and The Ohio State University?
I was pretty excited. I mean, yeah, Columbus, I'd been in other cities prior to, it wasn't like Columbus was my first big adventure outside of Steubenville. I'd been to New York, over the course of the high school years, in Chicago and other cities like that. But to think that I was actually going to move to Columbus, Ohio, and start a new adventure. That was pretty exciting. Yeah. So,
did you immediately fall into the general studies, or did you go right into English?
My first major was social work, believe it or not. And then my sophomore year, I switched it to criminology, and being rather ambitious, I thought my minor would be English literature. That's when I thought I'd actually, finish school. But my first year was social work, and I got into social work big time. That was part of the reason why I think Ohio State was in quarters back then. I think that was one of the big reasons why one particular quarter my grade point was so miserable, because part of the social work program was doing a volunteer field work, and I volunteered at a place called Huckleberry House, which I think is still in existence today here in Columbus, Ohio, which was a halfway house, a go-between for runaways, kids who had just left home or lost, a place where they could spend a couple of nights, had drinking problems, drug problems. There was also a suicide hotline there at Huckleberry House as well. And I got very involved quickly in that atmosphere and the problems of others. Not to sound all high and mighty, but it touched me. It touched me quickly, and I liked being there and felt like I was making a difference on a day-to-day basis.
It was better than cracking a book.
Anything was better than cracking a book. I was not a. You know what? I did well in the courses that I enjoyed. I'm not good in math. I'm not good in the sciences. Why I scheduled a physics, even though it was Physics 101, why I scheduled it at 8 o'clock in the morning, I never made it to that class. And if I did make it to that class, by the time he started to drone on and on and on about something, boom, it was just like, I was out cold, asleep, and waking up with drool on my sleeve and like, oh man, I hope somebody took notes, because I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't a good student. But if you had classes like my criminology classes and my English composition classes and literature class, those classes I enjoyed. Psychology classes I enjoyed. Sociology classes I enjoyed. I found those fascinating. Math and science, no.
And how long were you at the Huckleberry House?
I think I got involved with them in my second quarter of my freshman year. Was that right? Second or third quarter. Yeah, and like I said, I got in deep. I mean, I loved being there and spent a lot of time. I spent time there when I didn't have to spend time there.
And that was all part of the social work program that you were in?
Yeah, that was part of the field, some of the field work that you could do. There were other options as well. I'm not sure what those were. You're talking 1977, very vague,
very vague recollection.
recollection as to.
But you were getting college credit for it.
Yes, I was getting credit for it, but by spending all that time there and ignoring my other studies.
What made you think social work would be something that would strike a chord with you or get you through college and get a real job?
I don't know.
Ability to listen or ability to talk? Your ability to listen or your ability to talk?
Listen, for sure. And I think talk. I mean, isn't this the case with almost everybody on some level, that you can easily solve the problems or help other people with their problems, but you can't do shit with your own? Because you have objectivity when you're listening to other people, and you can identify and you can empathize more with them. I was very good at that. I think still to this day, I think I still have a large degree of empathy that I think helps me in life and in general. I feel for people. I can sense it. I know when something's wrong with somebody. I can just feel it, and then if I have the time, I'll dig into it and say, what's going on. But help myself, nah, no chance.
Now there's a concept that I use, and I'm sure I've seen you use, and that's a verbal IQ. Have you ever had your verbal IQ tested versus your written IQ?
I haven't had either one of them tested
Since grade school.
since ever.
Since they required it. And I bring that up because your verbal IQ is very high.
It is?
And someone with empathy is both a good listener and a good talker. And you've never gone in for a test of your verbal IQ.
Mm-mm.
Do you believe yourself to be a person of high verbal IQ?
No.
Why not? Because you're not good in math and science?
Probably. Maybe that's part of the reason. I don't know. I don't think I'm all that good a talker.
You've made a living at talking. You've made a living at listening. And part of that is obviously a reflection of how you were brought up and your life's experiences.
Well, and also I've made a life and a career out of watching. I watch people a lot. I watch how they move, and I watch their body language. I'll go into let's take a familiar surrounding. I'll go into a bar.
No.
Yeah, I know it happens from time to time. And
a place that serves food, right?
yeah, a place that serves. Yeah, I'll go for the chicken wings, and I'll unconsciously, scope out the room and start analyzing the people that are around there, who, what their story might be, what their in my own mind, what their background might be, why they're there, who they are, what they're about, so forth. Who might be a troublemaker, as the night progresses. Yeah, so I watch a lot of the time, as well as listen.
Where do you think the watch part came from?
I don't know.
It's not a paranoia.
No, doesn't fall into the area of paranoia. I'm not, though I won't sit with my back to the door of but that's other reasons, I think. I don't know. I think because I watched a lot when I was a kid, you ask about childhood memories. I watched how people interacted. I watched how my parents interacted. I watched how my family would interact with each other. Even at a young age in school, I would watch my fellow students and my teachers, and I don't know. I don't have a really solid explanation as to why. I just did.
Do you think it all goes back to the intentional acts of reading a lot as a child and watching a lot of movies as a child?
Maybe.
To pick up on social cues, to pick up on...
Maybe because when I would read, and still to this day when I read, I see the characters, I see the surroundings that are described in the book, I picture them. I mean, they become moving pictures in my head, not just words. In that respect, I see it, I hear the voices. While I'm reading something in my head, I'll determine what they sound like while I'm reading something. So yeah, maybe that's part of it, and the movies too. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's all connected, right?
At some point in time, everything's connected.
Yeah.
It all comes back full circle. Now, do you believe yourself to be a left brain or a right brain type person?
I don't know which is which. I always get them mixed up.
Left brain.
Left
Creativity?
Brain. Yeah, definitely. Left brain. Okay. What's right brain?
More science, math, facts.
I like facts.
You like facts.
And I like to analyze, and I can be very analytical. As long as there's no math and science involved.
So you had good experiences. You're in a social work program. You obviously have the empathy, the sympathy, the ability to listen, the ability to talk. What takes you out of social work program?
My love for crime.
My love for crime.
My love for crime.
Comma. period.
not the life of crime. Not that I want to be the criminal mind. I've always been
mind.
fascinated with the criminal mind.
Okay. So what was going on in the 1970s as far as criminals? Who were the famous criminals in the 1970s that you can recall?
No, the 70s. Wow, off the top of my head,
Munich, the bombs,
those are
Olympics.
Those are more terroristic type of things.
You recall the bank robbers in the 70s?
The first thing when you first said that, the first thing that popped into my head was I used to subscribe to Time and Newsweek magazines
While in college.
Yeah,
Wow.
And the sections I would go to first, whatever was on the cover, I didn't really care about. The sections I would always go to first, they had a crime section in Time magazine and a similar section in Newsweek, and in there were stories of criminals, be they bank robbers, kidnappers, murderers, whatever the case might be. That I would read that, and for a while I was clipping them out and saving them. Don't ask me why.
Why?
Because I was fascinated with it. I guess I had started a file.
Subconsciously, you started a file of.
I actually had a subconsciously and literally had a file of I don't know if I wanted them for story ideas or I just found them fascinating. Research, whatever the case might be. At one point I did throw them all away, but not all of them. But I was always fascinated with the criminal mind and how it worked.
Okay. And was there any particular crime that you found more noteworthy or more into your yen, so to speak?
I think it was probably the bigger notable crimes of the day. The Manson murders. Crimes that made Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, John Gacy. Just these bizarre, deep, sick minds that were able to use their charms and their abilities to influence and eventually, in the end run, sadly hurt people and kill people. But yeah, I was fascinated by what that mental makeup was all about from a psychopath and sociopathic state of things.
And was that covered deeply in the news that were you watching? Were you watching much TV in college?
The TV that I remember us watching in college was pretty much late night TV. We watched
David Letterman, Johnny Carson.
We watched Johnny Carson, and then we'd watch, this one goes way back, we'd watch Johnny Carson, who was 90 minutes at that point. Back in the day, he'd be on for 90 minutes, and then we'd watch Tom Snyder on the Tomorrow Show.
As he smoked.
Yeah.
Wore his red socks.
Yeah. He would not talk about somebody who could interview. He was a great interviewer.
He was a very good interviewer.
Love Tom Snyder. And then we do that every night. We get a Domino's pizza every night with the 4 shitty watered down Cokes, and that came for free with it. And every night we watched Johnny Carson, and then some of us stayed up and watched the Tomorrow Show, and then some of us stayed up even longer.
Now, who was the we eating the crappy pizza and drinking the washed down Coke?
The best roommates in the world. The same guys we mentioned in high school: Dave Kaplan, Greg DeTore, Bill Knoll, who eventually went away in that first year. But then, so that first year was just the 4-room dorm was just 3 of us, so we had that much more room. And then, like any successful sitcom, when one of the cast members goes away, there's always a new roommate that comes in.
And who was the newbie?
We had Spiro. Spiro was a new roommate, but he was after we got out of the dorms. Yeah. So
now, coming from Steubenville, a very ethnic area, and ending in Columbus, Ohio, how on God's green earth did you eat that cardboard that they call pizza back in the 70s?
We thought it was cheap. Cheap.
Inexpensive.
Inexpensive. Was key. I had the meal plan. Where I could go to the Commons across the street and eat. And the food there was decent. But as far as the indulgent, cheap food, Domino's Pizza was cheap. And you got the 4 free Cokes. You could go across the street. At the time, I lived in Taylor Tower on North Campus. You could go across the street and get a gyro for $1. I had a gyro every day.
What was the name of the gyro place?
Oh, man, I don't remember. The name of the gyro place. It was right there on Lane Avenue next to what
now is BW3?
There was a Thirsty Eye.
Yes.
Was one of the bars, and then there was the gyro place that was right. Came out of Thirsty Eye, and you could go right into the gyro shop and get a gyro. So it was small, but they cranked out a lot of that shitty meat.
Yes, they did.
Does anybody really know what a gyro is?
It's ground lamb.
Is it?
And meal.
Is it?
Really? It's supposed to be.
And it's shaped in a
cylindrical fashion. Yeah.
You know of any animal that's shaped?
That's why it's ground
in a cylindrical form.
Meatballs don't come like that.
Just saying. I don't care. It was good.
So did you have a favorite pizza back in Steubenville?
No, come on. That's a leading question, counselor. You know what the answer is. DeCarlo's. DeCarlo's Pizza in Steubenville, Ohio.
And
There's no better.
How could you possibly eat Donato's and think it was good coming from
Not
DeCarlo's?
Domino's. Domino's.
Even worse.
Domino's. Not Donato's.
Even worse.
Domino's.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
You just got used to it.
Yeah. It's what was available. It was what would be delivered to your dorm room.
Okay. Now, when I went to college, they delivered alcohol to your dorm room when you were 18 years old.
Where'd you go to school?
In Southern Connecticut.
In Southern Connecticut.
State University.
And then you went to?
Ohio Northern University. They didn't deliver alcohol there.
Well, we got alcohol. I mean, that was never a problem. We didn't have it delivered, but...
What was the drinking age when you went to college?
I don't know.
What was it? Did you have that 3.2 beer and you could be 18 and drink that?
No, that was you had to be 18 for 3.2 beer, but you had to be 21 to drink alcohol. But what you see now here, as far as this beard, a much younger face, but I had this not as much gray, but I had a full beard, and
So you were the designated buyer. You were the mule.
Yeah. We had fake IDs, but we never used them. We never had to. Nobody bothered you. Everybody just kind of turned a blind eye. I'm not saying it's right. It's how it was back in 1977.
There were bigger problems.
Yeah, there were bigger problems where they didn't have to worry about things. But yeah, some people had fake IDs because they needed them. We didn't. We carried ourselves. We looked like and acted like we were of age and consequently never any problems. Yeah.
And when you weren't home watching NBC television from 11 to 2 in the morning, where did you guys go at night? What were the popular haunts down on High Street?
We went to the Northburg, we went to the Thirsty Eye, we went to the library, which is a bar. For those of you in Columbus, you know that. One of the few, I think, remaining
still there
bars on North Campus. Every once in a while, we would migrate south to, was it Papa Joe's?
Papa Joe's with a bucket of beer.
Papa Joe's. Well, buckets of beer were everywhere. I mean, everybody had buckets of beer. Buckets of beer.
Think about that concept.
We drank out of gray pails, buckets of beer, and then some guys would later piss at them because the beer was crap, and there was too long of a line to go to the bathroom, and if there was an empty bucket, guys peed in it, and they just take these buckets and rinse them out and serve them back up again. But yeah, we just drank out of buckets, and we loved it.
Any other haunts that you went to eat other than chain pizzerias?
There was a Sandro's pizza. I think that was deep dish. That was more towards on South Campus. There was a couple of Chinese places that I don't recall the names, but were there forever. And everybody always joked that you were taking your life into your hands by, eating whatever came out of those places, on campus. But once again, come on, I'm 18, going on 19 years old. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Chinese food, pizza, gyros. What's gonna hurt me?
Ain't nothing gonna hurt you but yourself. Me? 151 and grain alcohol. That's about the only thing.
Hairy buffalo parties. Oh my God. Yeah.
For the listeners, a hairy buffalo party is
a grain alcohol and
usually in a trash can.
Yeah, in a trash can mixed with I don't remember what.
Hawaiian punch.
Was there Hawaiian punch?
Hawaiian punch.
Yeah. Anything. Orange juice, whatever you brought.
The grain alcohol was the key. Was the key to it all.
Okay. So getting away from alcohol and food. Let's get back to your studies. You're obviously interested in crime.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily reading Crime and Punishment.
I can't even say his name. But
him.
Yeah.
The Russian guy.
The Russian guy.
What made you change your major?
I didn't really change it. I just from social work to criminology.
Social work, criminology.
Oh, I just was listening to the. This sounds weird. Listen to the voices in my head. No, I think I just kind of followed where my interest seemed to be peaking. And maybe it was because of the social work. Maybe I unconsciously wanted to dig deeper into what got some of those kids there. What type of situations, what type of people that they were dealing with, because a lot of these kids were drug addicts, and so all right. So
what was the drug of choice back in the 70s? Was it heroin, cocaine, marijuana?
Marijuana was pretty popular. Soapers.
A soaper is
a Quaalude.
Quaalude. Okay.
Quaaludes, soapers, those were huge. Amphetamines were big. Black beauties.
I'm not necessarily talking about the college, because I'm talking about the people you came in contact with at the Huckleberry House. What were their problems largely driven by?
Oh yeah.
Was it a heroin-based problem?
Alcohol and marijuana. Cocaine. I started to see the beginnings of cocaine in the late 70s. I started to see more people starting to use it and try it, and I never did. Mushrooms, acid, guilty, acid, mushrooms, pot. I never did the Quaaludes, because there was one guy I remember that would do them, and he'd always, no matter what happened, he'd always end up in a corner pissing himself. And I go, well, that doesn't seem.
That's not sexy.
That's not sexy. That doesn't seem like a good way to finish off the night. Yeah, and
right.
I think his nickname was something P. There because he pee himself all the time. It's just like it'd just be this like he'd be when he was conscious. He would pee not just when he passed out. He would pee when he was awake, and not know that he was peeing. And he'd be drinking and doing the Quaaludes, and there'd be this big old wet spot in the middle of his crotch. And like, oh man, dude, you peed yourself again. Fuck it, I don't care, whatever. Like, okay, no Quaaludes for me. Marijuana, hash, tried acid. Never tried cocaine, and I drank.
And you studied?
Not well.
What was your GPA at graduation?
I didn't graduate.
You didn't graduate?
I did not.
Ever?
Mm-mm. Just from the School of Hard Knocks, counselor.
How many years were you at The Ohio State University?
3.5.
How many credits short are you?
All of them. At one point, I came very close to a Blutarski grade point average. I think
0.0008.
I think my worst grade point average was a 1.899. Not even a 1.9 one year, and that's obviously the quarter where I just didn't go. And it must have been classes that I had no interest in. I must have foolishly had a quarter that was full of science and math and just.
But you had matriculated into your senior year.
Age-wise, not credit-wise.
So.
I think by the time, even though I was in my junior year, I probably still only had sophomore status as far as actual credits go, and I had deficiency points, and I was this close to getting kicked out for deficiency points and grade point average before I actually took myself out, because at this point I was just wasting money.
And at that point, who was back home in Steubenville when you decided to remove yourself from college?
My mother, my sister, they were still back there. My sister was a couple years behind me, so she would have been finishing up in high school. My mother was back there. They eventually left Steubenville as well and moved to Maryville, Indiana. And my sister did go and finish school. She went to Ohio State and finished.
Why'd they go to Maryville, Indiana?
Family. Greeks, yeah, they're just
family or Greeks or both.
Yeah, or both. There was an invitation. The doctor that my mother worked for in Steubenville retired, so she needed a job, and when the opportunity to also, she needed a job, and it kind of all converged at the same time. My sister was out of the house, so my mother was back there, and it just seemed like a good time to pick up and move.
Okay. So while you're going to college, your first year, your second year, are you going back home to Steubenville? Are you seeing the boys? Are you going home to see Mom or Stamey?
Yeah, not as often as I should have. Yeah, I didn't go back as much as everybody else.
And the reason was?
I was having a good time.
Was there anything
had a good
left
time,
in Steubenville
had a girlfriend, had a good time, just like... and the other... I forgot. The other reason was because a lot of the weekends my first year were taken up because I was in a band.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You were in a what?
I was in a band.
You played the tambourine?
No, I sang.
Okay.
I sang in a band. It was a...
It wasn't called the Smith Brothers Hardware Store,
no,
was it?
It wasn't called. It was a Greek American band. We played Greek and American music. We started it my senior year in high school. We were Talevendopeda, which translated into English would be the fine young lads. And we would play weddings,
that's great,
baptisms, church dances.
Were you affiliated with the Greek Cathedral here in town?
We never played in Columbus, but we would play a lot of Ohio gigs, and we would be booked on the weekends. We'd have to go to Canton, or we'd have to go to Akron, or we'd have to go to Pittsburgh, or someplace and do a gig on the weekends.
And how did you dress for that? I might ask.
We had tuxedos. We had two. We had light gray ones and
please say blue. Please say blue.
Powder blue. Yes. Powder blue. Hansberry. I think I have a photo. I can forward to you.
Let's try to find that. We'll put that on our Instagram page.
We bought them we got them at a fire sale.
Literally.
Fire
sale.
There was the tuxedo shop in Steubenville had a fire, and Sam Travelino was selling what was saved from the fire at a discount. So we bought 2 tuxedos each.
And could you play an instrument, or you just chose to sing?
I started to play guitar my junior year in high school, and
didn't work out so well.
No, it worked out fine. But there was no need. I wasn't. I didn't play it in the band.
You were the Jim Morrison of the band?
I was the singer and the front man.
You were the Lizard King?
Yes, I was as much as you can be in a Greek. We would play a set of Greek music, and then we'd play a set of American music.
Now, when you say Greek music, you were actually singing in Greek?
Yeah, singing in Greek.
Can you still sing in Greek?
We actually
hum a few bars for us, if you could.
Opopo Maria, Opopo Maria, Opopo Maria, Sagapo.
You're looking at me like are you doing it right? I don't know. I don't speak Greek.
Yeah, so we
That's good. Nice job.
that was the A side of our single. We made a 45. We recorded it here in Columbus, Ohio. Actually, we did a 45.
Fine young lads did.
The I Live in Dopa that did a Greek single, yeah, with our two more popular songs that we had, because we would do that Opopo Maria that we would open up with that a cappella, and like the 3 or 4 of us singing all the different parts, and it was a whole different take on the song. And
Now, have you ever seen anyone record that on, what would it be back then, 8mm?
what no, it was on a 45.
No, I mean an actual someone filming at a wedding or at a.
If there's video, I don't know. Like I said, I know there's a picture of us after a show in our tuxedos. So I will definitely get that to you for this podcast.
And the record.
It is
45.
It is not flattering, to say the least. Yeah.
What caused the band to break up?
Me.
Yoko?
Me.
Because?
Well, they didn't break up, but I quit. I quit the band. I didn't want to travel anymore. I wanted to stay in Columbus. I wanted to be a college student, or wanted to be. I wanted to live my college life. I didn't want to.
Is the band still together?
No, the band broke up shortly after that. It sounds so conceited to say that the band broke up because I left the band, but
That's what happened with the Beatles.
well, I mean, there was they finished off their gigs, and I think eventually it ran its course. I just got ahead of it, and then started playing music on campus with the guy that played keyboards in our band, Doug Hale, and we started a duo on campus called Doug and Dino, where I played guitar and sang, and Doug played keyboards and he played banjo. Doug was the musician. I played enough guitar, and we played music at the Black Forest, another place on campus, North Campus, which is now I think the Thirsty Scholar, on Lane and something.
Correct.
It used to be the Black Forest. We played in the Black Forest, and we played another bar called the IP Lounge on South Campus, owned by Louis Mackus, and we played there on Thursday nights and sometimes Friday, Saturdays. We'd do the whole weekends. And it was great, and we were very popular on campus.
And you just did cover tunes, or
We did a lot of cover tunes. We did some original stuff too, original songs. I wrote a lot of original music in my from 18 to my mid 20s. I wrote a shit ton of music that's
you still have it?
all upstairs. Oh yeah. I actually went into a studio and recorded 15 or 16 different songs and got them all copywritten, because at the time I thought they were great songs and I didn't want anybody to steal them. So, but yeah, there's a ton of music upstairs.
Did you ever show them to Danny?
My daughter?
Yes.
Danielle. I think she's heard some of them over the years. I don't know if she's actually heard the
Is there anything in there that she could use for her own spin
tape.
on it?
Don't know. It'd be interesting to revisit, wouldn't it?
It would be.
It would be.
It would
yeah.
be coming full circle.
Yeah. I wrote a lot of music, and I still, from time to time, mess around with the guitar and crank out a little something and quietly.
And do you consider yourself a ballad writer or an angry writer or funny writer?
They covered the range of emotions. There's a CD. Well, it's a CD now. At the time, it was just recorded on cassette. But I did a show in the lobby of Taylor Tower with my guitar, and it was just. And they billed it as A Night with Dino, and I did all original music. I mean, I did an hour's worth of original songs, and my roommate recorded them. And he found that tape and put it on a CD, and that night at Taylor Tower, I mean, there were goofy novelty songs in there too. There was one called Sixth Floor Taylor Tower. There was one called Thursday,
Dr. Demento type
Thursday
stuff?
Night at the Eye, at the Thirsty Eye, and then there were also tender ballads, birthday wishes, birthday dreams, all kind of tender ballady romantic stuff, sensitive stuff, and some angry stuff too, I'm sure. Yeah.
What was your favorite? You had to have one.
Darkness of the Moon.
What was it about?
We huddle close together in the darkness of the moon, smoke our cigarettes, listen to some tunes. Hoping that life doesn't catch up too soon in the darkness of the moon. And then it told a story. They say Tom's future lies in medicine or law. He says, I disagree. I've never heard that call. His parents are begging him to go to school next fall. Tommy, go to school next fall. Jean, she could have been a model extraordinaire. She had the figure, she had the looks, she had the hair. But a baby's due in April. Now the choice no longer there. And so it was about these lost individuals that huddle close together in the darkness of the moon, smoke our cigarettes, and listen to some tunes.
Bruce Springsteen there. You're
the
the boss.
Yeah. And that's 20-some-year-old angst, coming out.
Did you find yourself to have more creativity in your 20s?
I was pretty prolific in my 20s, with both music and also what I thought was writing. More prolific in the writing when I got married, and would sit out in the garage in my typewriter, and I've got all those stories, all those rejection letters, and the stories that I sent out thinking were good at the time, and weren't. And maybe there's some redeeming value in them still that needs a more seasoned eye now to go back and look. But yeah, I wrote a lot of music and just wrote.
What were you trying to copy? What were you trying to be in the 70s? Seals and Crofts, Simon and Garfunkel, Bruce Springsteen.
I don't think we as Doug and Dino were trying to be anybody. We were just having fun. Look, we got $50 each a night.
Free booze, and not to sound cheesy, but girls like musicians. So we were popular on many levels. So it was a good time. You got paid, you got booze. Girls were digging you, and where were y'all living off campus?
The place that we moved into when we got out of the dorms was 88 East 8th Avenue. It was this huge apartment building that myself, Dave, Greg, Spiro, and we actually had a fifth roommate, Sam Ivkovich. We all lived there. And we thought it was the greatest place in the world, and the rent was pretty inexpensive. What we did not know is that the landlord, whoever had that place, put no money into it. There was no insulation in the walls. We had $900 gas bills in the wintertime. Oh, it was crazy.
$900?
Oh, it was crazy.
Back when $900 was $900.
Yeah, we had $900 gas bills because this was a two-story place. It was a dining room, a big living room, a big kitchen. Then you go upstairs, and there was a bedroom two bedrooms downstairs and 3 bedrooms upstairs, and you had to go through a bathroom to get to my room, and then there was another room past mine. There was a bathroom that had 2 toilets sitting next to each other. No divider, just 2 commodes that were sitting next to each other, which, God bless them. I'm gonna call them out. Yeah, no, Dave Kaplan and Greg DeTore would actually sit and take shits at the same time, and talk. And I'd walk in and they'd just be sitting there, shitting and talking, and I'm like, how do you do that? And it didn't bother them in the least. But I'd have to go past that to get to my room, because my room was on the other side. But yeah, it was a great place.
That was a mental picture I really didn't need.
It was a great place. We had great parties there. Some of the most amazing, sensational parties ever.
And you lived there your sophomore and junior years?
Junior, senior years, I guess. You know,
years 3 and 4.
Years 3 and 4. Yeah. First 2 years were in the dorm. We liked the dorm. We loved Taylor Town.
You were eating Domino's or Donatos or whatever the hell you were eating.
Yeah.
You were having fun. So what were you reading back then in college?
See, that's
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, anything?
See, I was still a voracious reader. I just wasn't reading what I was supposed to be reading. I wasn't reading the textbooks. No, and then again, not entirely true. I would read the criminology textbooks and the psychology textbooks they give. But what happened was I would read something in there and I would see something and that would motivate me to read something else. I read a lot of nonfiction back then, crime nonfiction, biographies, and then I also read a lot of. I think that's where I probably dug in more, even though we had certain books that we had to read in high school, A Separate Peace, and, The Great Gatsby. I dug more into the classics probably in college than I did when I was in high school. Hemingway, Steinbeck. I'm drawn Fitzgerald. Thank you, because I just after we had that podcast last week with Hasty, I skimmed through The Great Gatsby again because there was something he said in our podcast last week where Fitzgerald said there are no second acts, and I took exception to that because I think that's not true. So I went back and kind of skimmed through The Great Gatsby again to see if I could gather where he came up with that thought.
No existentialism? Wasn't a focus back then?
Everybody was reading Carlos Castaneda.
Yes.
A lot of that. No, I picked that up a couple of times and put it back down. No. Didn't get into any of that stuff.
So what was the conversation that you had with your mother when you decided that it's time to pull anchor from The Ohio State University and set out for your first big boy job?
Obviously, she wasn't happy. Her dream was if you're going to go to college, my mother wanted me to obviously be successful in college. She envisioned me being a lawyer, I think, at one point, which, in hindsight, if I would have had the brass tacks, I think I would have been a good lawyer.
You'd have been a great criminal lawyer.
I think I would have been a good lawyer.
You'd have been a great criminal lawyer.
Yeah, I think so. I still, to this day, I want to do, before I die, is it possible to do a closing argument and not be a lawyer?
Yes, if you're your own lawyer.
Can't you be in a trial and say and then have me do the closing argument?
I could have you do the trial of Socrates next year at the Greek church and give the closing argument. Literally, I had 2 first-year associates do that this year.
Yeah?
You would enjoy that.
Probably would.
You would enjoy that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know much about the law.
But I do know Socrates.
But what I do know is the truth. I just want to do one closing argument before I go.
So were you listening to any bands back then? Were you following anyone during your college years?
We had a rule that we had in the dorm. We had a stereo album and speakers in the bathroom and in the study room as well. But we also had speakers in the bathroom. And the rule was whenever you went and took a shower, you got to listen to whatever you wanted to listen to while you were taking a shower. So even back then, I was into Sinatra and the singers. Even then, I still liked all the contemporary music that was out there. Not all of it, but there was still there. Det was into jazz big time, so there would be a lot of jazz albums. And Dave was into country, so there'd be country albums. So we ran the gamut, and there was some rock and roll as well that we played and listened to, but.
Nobody that you followed. You weren't a deadhead. You didn't travel around.
No.
The Allman Brothers Band.
No, went and saw Jackson Browne at St. John's Arena, and we like comedy. I saw Steve Martin at Mershon when I was at Ohio State University, at the peak of his career in the late 70s, when he was, wild and crazy guy.
This is pre-Jerk.
Pre-Jerk, yeah, but Jerk came shortly thereafter, as a result of his popularity. But we saw Steve Martin. I had just flunked either a math or science midterm, whatever the case might be, and we had tickets to go see Steve Martin, and I thought, wow. And we saw Jay Leno at the Newport when he was starting out in his career, and starting to get bigger venues.
Sure.
Yeah, before the Tonight Show, obviously. Yeah, saw Jay Leno, Steve Martin. Yeah, we were into comedy. We like to laugh. I mean, we laughed all the time.
So what'd you learn about yourself in your 4 years in college that you didn't know coming out of Steubenville?
That whatever dreams I had, if I wanted to get to them, it wasn't going to be through college. I honestly thought those early years that I was either going to be a writer or a musician, a songwriter of some sort. I thought that was going to be my ticket somehow. Not because I was a great singer. I was an okay singer. But I thought I was a good songwriter. And I thought that either that or I was going to follow the criminology side of things and be a cop.
So when you originally got into criminology, you were thinking detective?
If you look at my high school yearbook, I think the criminology says it in there. It says, plans that was to be working in a big city police department and hopefully get to detective status. I said that in my high school yearbook. So obviously that was part of it. And I did try to get on the police department. I took the test. I passed the test. I did everything I could, but that was very hard to get on the police department back then because there were quotas and they had a lot of male whites, and they needed more diversity back then. Even in the late 70s, it was hard to get on the police department. I got close.
This was in Columbus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So what happens? You pull out of college. You're still Dan and Dino are still
Doug and Dino
gigs?
are still
Doug and Dino?
are still
Doug, Dan, Ralph.
Doug and Dino are still playing a little bit. I got a job at Lazarus, which was now Macy's, catching shoplifters.
How does one get a job catching shoplifters?
You go and fill out a basic application, and you look at what's available as far as the jobs that openings that they had. And I saw loss prevention, and I said, "What's this?" And I said, "Catch shop." I go, "I want to do this." And so, okay, so I got to do that.
This I got to hear. Tell me about your life catching shoplifters.
Downtown Lazarus.
At Lazarus on South High Street.
Downtown Lazarus. What a great couple of years that was.
When did you start that?
When I got out, when I wasn't going to go to Ohio State anymore. I was still living with my roommates, but I was working.
Of course, you were going to give that up.
Yeah, but I was catching shoplifters.
So what were your hours like?
I was going in the morning, going at when the store opened, and when the store closed.
Now, for those that don't know, Lazarus had about 8 floors.
Yep.
Starting all the way in the basement with the
Yep.
returned beds and dressers and other
Yep.
miscellaneous furniture. First floor men's, second floor women's.
First floor men's, also first floor fine jewelry.
Fine jewelry.
Second or third floor was ladies, intimates, and so furniture was up on the 4th or 5th floor. There was bargain furniture in the basement, good, nice furniture on the top floors. Kids department, and you got them all. You got called whenever there was, before the police got called. You got called if there was, but you looked for shoplifters, obviously, to try to find people stealing stuff. But you also had to respond to any other type of incidents. We had incident reports, drunks, mental cases, whatever the case might be.
You're wearing plain clothes, I take it.
Plain clothes, just walking around,
So what were you looking for? What were you marking as far as shoplifters? Lazarus, 1980 something.
Credit card frauds. You get a credit card fraud, and you have to go because those are the dangerous ones because that's a felony. The shoplifting up to a certain amount of money was a misdemeanor, and I forgot at a certain point that it was a felony. But if everything, just a shoplifting was but the credit card fraud was a felony. So those people were serious.
So how'd you catch them?
They, the fraud would go through, and you would actually, and the clerk would say that's the person, and you'd go get them.
Explain that to me. You would go get them.
You go get them. First, sometimes they would come quietly, and sometimes they wouldn't. Now there was police. There were special duty officers.
Did you have handcuffs?
Had handcuffs.
You got physical?
Had handcuffs. Had mace. Had gotten fights. Gotten fights galore. Lots of rough and tumble fights. Chased. The Bill Davis, who was my boss, very good friend. He was my boss. To this day, that's one of his favorite stories ever. Is like. There's a credit card fraud, and they were talking on the walkies back and forth, and they were talking back and forth, and someone was saying like, well, who's on it? They go, Dino's on it. He goes, well, where are they? They goes, they've left the store, and Dino's chasing them on foot. He goes, no, and they're in a car. Is Dino in a car? No, he's chasing the car. He's chasing the car down High Street, and Bill says, and if they stop at the red light, I think he's going to catch them.
Did you catch him?
Yes, we caught him. We caught him.
Now, did you have to testify as a witness?
No. Those are all pretty much clean cut. Good arrests.
Good arrests. They pled out. All done.
Yeah, all done. Yeah. Good
Now,
arrest.
how long were you an undercover Lazarus man?
Couple 3 years. That's where I met my wife at Lazarus, who was working part-time there in cosmetics, and that led me down another path. Before you know it, I was working at Lazarus. Then they had budget cuts, and I had to take other jobs at Lazarus.
What else did you do at Lazarus?
I did something in at overnights. There was whatever computer stuff they had that put out all the inventory sheets and so forth and so on. I had to do something manual, not technical, because that was not my thing at all. I was like, but did that, and then I started working part-time at the branches, to fill the hours that I didn't have downtown. I started doing like Northland, Kingsdale, to fill in the hours. When I was married, I had two. Well, at that point, which I said, this is not the way I want my life to go, but I was married and had a baby, so I was working 2 shitty jobs to make money,
What was the second shitty job?
When I say shitty job, it wasn't a shitty job because the gentlemen that I worked for were wonderful. It was twin vending. I filled vending machines. Okay. I worked hard. They were great. Bill and Bob Harding, great guys, great little company. I worked for them for 2 years. Eventually, I did leave, and they were sorry to see me go. They said to this day, one of the best employees they ever had. And I did. I filled candy machines and pop machines. And
it's an honorable profession. They
know,
could count on you. You weren't going to take the nickels from the machine.
Then whatever I did to the best of my abilities, and I worked hard. I mean, I took it seriously, and everybody liked me on my route. Everybody enjoyed me. I was funny. I was charming on my route. People liked it when I would come fill the machines. The only thing I hated about that job is when I'd be almost done and heading back to the warehouse, and I get a beep, beep, beep. There's a broken pop machine out on Sawmill Road that you got to fix and take care of before you go home. Like, God damn it. And go fix the coin slot or get the jam twisted Coke that was stuck in the dispenser, whatever the case might be.
I take it you never yearned to move back home and work in the steel factory?
Nope.
Not ever again?
Nope. Steubenville was on the downslide, and whenever I would go back to visit, it was visible, and you could see that, it wasn't going in the direction that I was going. I wasn't going to go back. A lot of guys did go back. A lot of go back home, and a lot of guys never left home, and have done very well for themselves in other occupations other than the mill.
Sure.
Made a life for themselves.
Now, what happened with all your roommates? Did they all go on and graduate, or successful?
Yeah. None of them in what they studied. I don't think so. I think Dave is successful in commercial real estate up in the Akron area right now. I think he graduated with a teaching certificate. He went in education. Det started off in optometry and then went into business. He currently works for Cardinal Health. Bill Knoll, since we last spoke, I've been told is somewhere in New Mexico with as my friend Rick Andreessen said, Bill Knoll could probably find you and send a guided missile your way to take you out anytime he wants. So he's still involved in something supposedly missile related.
Down on the G.
Uh-huh.
As we close this second episode, having gone through your early years and your high school years, and now going through your college years, one of your favorite singers, famous for saying regrets, I've got a few.
Yeah.
Let's close with some regrets that you have from the college years.
I wish I would have finished. I wish I would have studied better. I wish I would have studied more.
Did you have fun?
I had a great time.
Did you learn about yourself?
I did.
Did you learn how to control yourself?
No. No.
You have great respect for others, though. You have a self-constraint button.
Yeah.
That I've always seen.
Mm-hmm. Even in college, I did. Yeah.
Having been around your mother and your sister and your half-brother, I can tell that part of that's inbred, but part of that's just you manning up somehow.
Yeah, I've always stepped up to the best of my abilities. I just think, I wish I would have taken it more seriously.
Did you ever think about going back and finishing?
Uh-huh. I have. And then I talked myself out of it. I don't know what the point would be now. It's not. I have regrets for not taking it more seriously and studying harder and actually getting a degree that my mother would be proud of, et cetera, et cetera.
Your mother's very proud of you. You know that.
Is she?
Yes, she is. She tells my wife that all the time.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes.
She's very, very proud of you.
I wonder. I mean, I know she's proud of me, but she still worries too much. Yeah,
a mother's job is to worry.
I wish I would have taken it more seriously in hindsight. Yeah. I wish I would have buckled down, because obviously I could do the work. I chose not to, and I think that's a very revealing personality trait and a quality.
You think it's a personality trait, or you think it's a fit? It's a round peg in a square hole.
You can do it, but you choose not to. What is that?
I don't think that
What's
your
that
personality necessarily lends itself to having to complete a college degree to be a successful professional here in Columbus, Ohio. And success is measured by many different things. It's not what did the Wizard of Oz say? It's not the degree. You don't need a degree to be smart. You don't need.
I agree with that.
A piece of paper. I'll give you a piece of paper if you want a piece of paper.
Oh, I guarantee you, I have no problem, no qualm saying I'm probably better read than most college graduates.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
Sure.
And smarter in certain areas of life than some college graduates maybe. I know people who have college diplomas, master's degrees, PhDs, but don't have a lick of common sense.
It ain't all that common
when it comes to the everyday foils of life on a regular basis. I mean, you take them out of that academia and put them in situations that I've been in my life, and they would crumble. I have no doubt.
Yes, they would. No
doubt.
regrets about not getting into counseling as a profession?
No.
Having been in the criminology, criminal prevention, loss prevention arena. No regrets about not going full-time into crime?
I dabbled. Well, I mean, I know that's part 3 coming up. And, I got in. I've had my taste of it and did well in it.
Okay.
And
just as
a tease for part 3.
Just as a preview for part 3.
Yeah.
Can you let the folks know? We're going to talk about your professional career. And when I say your professional career, I view it as a professional investigator and your professional career at Sunny 95.
And don't forget my glorious stand-up years.
Well, your stand-up years are kind of intertwined into radio.
Stand-up led to radio. Stand-up stood alone, no pun intended, for quite a few years. It did. I mean, that's how I made. That's
how you made it.
That's how that was my full-time job, was stand-up. It went from investigative work to stand-up. Investigative work was mixed in with the stand-up. Then stand-up eventually went off on its own. Stand-up led to radio. And then radio led to all the other wonderful things I've gotten to do as a result of having that radio job. So, the writing and the filmmaking and so forth and so on.
And don't forget those 245s.
And this. Yeah. And this magnificent piece of crap we call whiskey business, where we get to drink fine whiskeys week after week and talk about things that I'm not comfortable talking about. We had the Basil Hayden's Dark Rye. Did you guys like this, by the way? Did you find
second glass better than the first? It took a little getting used to the sweet.
It's the sweet. It's the port.
The port is
good,
though.
The port. It almost like a sherry cask.
It is
finish.
The port. It does not have a typical rye finish, despite the fact that it's a combination of Kentucky straight rye whiskey and Canadian rye whiskey. The port definitely makes itself known throughout from the nose to the palate to the finish. I think the port is in there all the way, and it ranges between $49 and $52 a bottle. So if you want to pick it up and find it, it was hard to find. It's a kind of a tough one to find, but I think this is the first one that that Basil Hayden is committed to. On as far as they're going to keep making it. It's not going to be like a one and done type of thing. So this will be on the shelves, along with their other fine products from the good folks at Jim Beam. So there.
So when we resume, it's the Just Sweats episode, the stand-up comedy, and the Sunny years.
Sure. One of those
is not like the other.
Yeah, I'm probably more reluctant to talk about than the other. But yeah, sure. We'll get into that, and then we're done.
Maybe.
Unless you want to go. Well, the questions that my daughters had might lead you to the future. So who knows what that might bring.
Your daughters have questions that we
my
haven't gotten to
daughters
yet?
have questions. They most certainly have questions.
Our guest interviewer has been Attorney Bill Mattis. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the drink.
Thanks for drudging up some interesting times in college. And the audio portion of Whiskey Business produced by Mr. Greg Hansberry, and the video portion on our YouTube channel produced by John Whitney. Over to my right. Put the thumbs up, Johnny. You always do that every episode. That's right. Thank you. Very appreciate it. Thank you. And we encourage you to watch us on YouTube. Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis on YouTube. WhiskeyBusinessShow.com to find everything you want to know about Whiskey Business on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. Anything else?
Subscribe and on iTunes, just click that little subscribe and review us, because when you review on iTunes, it helps all the other podcasters out there kind of find out about us.
It really does.
So,
and a big thank you to everybody for listening and watching, because the audience is growing, and we really do appreciate
and
that.
Just spread the word. Tell some friends. The holidays are coming up. Road trips, grassroots effort goes a long way. So just tell your buddies and stuff.
All right. So until the next bottle, see you.